Hello everybody and welcome back to the virtual racing compound Porsche Super Cup. We are here at Monza for the finale, round 8 of the season, one of the favourites from myself at least on the calendar. I'm sure a few of the drivers are a fan as well. We do have the standard layouts for this evening, both a 15-minute sprint race followed by a 25-minute feature race. The champion will be crowned tonight. Plastow still leading the championship and is in a good shout with securing that top spot if he can keep it on the road and keep those points rolling in. And very much third place up for grabs. It's between Chris Roberts and Matt Forrest. Not too much to pick between them at the moment. We will have a look to see how the championship ends off towards the end of the evening. But in a few moments' time, the drivers will be heading out to complete their qualifying session, which will set the grid for race 1. So here we go, drivers slowly getting onto the grid, and we will see how they line up after the qualifying session for race 1 of the evening. Nicholas Cacato will start on pole position with a 1:48.504 being the pole time. Remco Barlow for WPR Racing will line up alongside. Then it's a full virtual racing compound row 2, Peter Plastow, followed by Matthew Forrest. Then it's Chris Roberts starting in 5th. 6th place is Stephen Orrell, and Gaston Maceroni and Marino Lazard start 7th and 8th. Row 5 of the grid is made up of Matt Sisseler, followed by Stuart Jacklin, and then it's Javier Perna and Jose Skulj rounding out your starting drivers. Only 12 drivers here this evening, but it shouldn't take away from the racing, so we will just wait for all of the drivers to take to the grid, and we will get race 1 underway. So the final driver joins the grid. We have all 12 cars on the grid. And in a few moments' time, the lights will come on, red lights on, and they extinguish. Now it's an okay start from everybody. A slow start from the back of the grid. However, Stuart Jacklin not getting away well. Already losing out to Jose Skulj and now Javier Perna. It's a run right the way down towards turn 1 of the chicane. It's still Remco Barlow leading the way from Nicholas Cacato. Matthew Forrest trying to work his way through and up the inside. Pete Plastow just sat behind, being hounded by Stephen Orrell. Gaston Maceroni has already lost a position, but trying to fight back past Chris Roberts. Chris not the greatest run out of the chicane. Lost a lot of positions, makes further contact there with Jose Skulj. And Jose Skulj and Chris Roberts all in the wall, in the Armco and the grass. But down towards the second chicane already, slowly starting to build that gap is Remco Barlow, ahead of Nicholas Cacato, being hounded by Matthew Forrest, who doesn't really have too much pressure behind. Gaston Maceroni still carving his way up through the order. I think Stephen Orrell bouncing over the curbs, losing out a little bit through the chicane. Matt Sisseler sat there waiting to try and work his way up the inside. Everybody slowly working their way through. Stephen Orrell sideways through Lesmo 1, and unavoidably Stuart Jacklin managed to work his way through. Matt Sisseler had nowhere to go, straight in towards the tail. There's a little bit of damage on the tail end of Javier Perna's car, but that now means Chris Roberts and Stephen Orrell both in towards the pit lane. Jose Skulj limping that car through Lesmo 1 towards Lesmo 2 now on the first lap of the race. All this action, and it's a 15-minute race in a few moments' time. Marino Lazard losing out yet further. A lot of damage on the front end of that car, so potentially an issue from himself. Remco Barlow, from the lead of the race, has found himself right the way down in 8th place, so losing out very, very early on. That does now mean Nicholas Cacato has inherited the lead. Matthew Forrest all over his tail, desperately trying to work his way past. Through the long, long right-hander of Parabolica we go, and then on towards the start-finish straight to tick lap number 1 in the book. Across the line we will go. It's still Matthew Forrest hounding Gaston Maceroni. He will have the draft for quite some time now. It's all about the waiting game. Matthew Forrest can decide if and when he wants to overtake. Heading in towards the final few laps, I'm sure he will slowly start to size the lead up. But at the moment, it's a virtual racing 1-3, 2 cars on the podium. Gaston Maceroni still sat there in 3rd place, no real pressure. 3.5 seconds up the road is his teammate fighting away with Matthew Forrest. Pete Plastow 2.5 seconds behind, a little bit of damage on the front right-hand side and the rear left of his Porsche. Javier Perna sat there in 5th place. Stuart Jacklin just within striking distance. Of course, draft so critical to your race aspirations here at Monza. Mariano Lazard in towards the pit lane, exiting the pit lane now. He will come. The number 238 Argentine driver taking to the circuit. Matt Sisseler left without too much to do. Hasn't got any damage. He has been into the pit lane, clearly picked up that fast repair, and will return to the circuit, hoping to pick up some further positions. Jose Skulj deciding, heading into the pit lane at this stage of the race, with it only being a 15-minute sprint race, maybe isn't worth it, but of course all of that drag that the front end of that Porsche will now be producing because of the damage will make him very slow in a straight line. He might not have the turn in and the cornering potential that is usually expected from these Porsches. Of course, using the 992 variant since the update from the 911 last season. There is Javier Perna under ever-increasing pressure from Stuart Jacklin in the Easy Racing number 6 machine behind. Down the straight we go. Damage on the tail end of Javier Perna, but it shouldn't affect the straight line speed. Maybe a little bit of cornering has been lost. In towards Parabolica they will go. And the MYD Sim Racing number 74. Still doing what he can to defend. Fastest lap of the race now, Matthew Forrest, a 1:49.378. Well within striking distance of our leader. He's looking to the inside. Can he do it on the brakes? Later on the brakes, you can see the car squirming around as all of the weight transfers to the front. But Matthew Forrest manages to take the lead away from the number 2 Virtua Racing of Nicholas Cacato. He will now focus forward and do what he can to pull away from any further attacks. But Javier Perna still under pressure now from Stuart Jacklin. Just going to focus on continuing to move forward, try not to get caught up on what's going on in his rear view mirror. You can hear them changing down the gearbox, trying to get the car slowed down for the second chicane. A little bit of contact I think I may have heard somewhere else around the circuit. Javier Perna running slightly wide. Of course, there is off tracks that can quite easily be gained. They will give you a 1x, 1 incident point, just by running wide, turning in slightly too early. 4 wheels off the circuit will get you one of those. Already a third of the way through the race. Matthew Forrest got in front and is desperately trying to build that gap. Make sure that Nicholas Cacato can't reap the rewards of the draft assistance. Javier Perna this time losing out to Stuart Jacklin. A bit of a wobble on the exit of Ascari. I think he went slightly deep there, did Stuart Jacklin. Just about got the car slowed down, but that has now reversed the roles. Javier Perna can tuck underneath the rear wing of the car in front. Going defensive is Stuart Jacklin. Javier Perna looking towards the outside all the way around Parabolica. He's got to be very brave if he can do that. He gives it a go. Will now look for the cut back on the exit. He might be able to get on the power slightly earlier. And then focus once again on making the most of the draft assistance from the car in front. Fighting back now, Nicholas Cacato. Matthew Forrest goes defensive on the inside, cuts the nose off Nicholas Cacato and makes sure that there isn't any further overtaking opportunities presenting themselves. Remco Barlow, fastest lap of the race from 7th place, a 1:49.352, so really pushing forward, desperately trying to make up some positions. In the background, there's contact between Javier Perna and Stuart Jacklin. Javier Perna going straight on at the chicane, clearly waiting for Stuart Jacklin to retake to the circuit. He does so now. Potentially it was Remco Barlow as well caught up in that one. Javier Perna being very patient, just making the stewards aware that he hasn't gained an advantage. He's given back any position that he may have affected. Chris Roberts back out and circulating. A big lock up there through the second chicane. He's got cars all over his tail. Lapped cars, Chris Roberts will be the lapped car for these cars. Stuart Jacklin and Remco Barlow just sat behind now. A new battle has formed there, but for the lead, the closest cars on circuit, only 4/10 separating them. Matthew Forrest and Nicholas Cacato. So Virtual Racing Compound versus Virtua Racing. Into Ascari they will go. And Matthew Forrest still leading the way, but Remco Barlow with that fastest lap of the race, showing that he is really pushing forward, trying to carve his way through that midfield and work his way in towards a potential podium place, but I think he will run out of time before the end of the race. Stuart Jacklin being the next of those cars that has lost out to Remco Barlow. Up into 5th place now is Remco. The next target for him will be Pete Plastow. Through Parabolica once again for the 4th time, heading on to lap 5 of the race, already halfway through. And across the line, lap time's not massively different between the pair of them, only 0.03 of a second was the lap time difference between Matthew Forrest and Nicholas Cacato, 1st and 2nd place. Once again, Nicholas Cacato goes towards the outside. Matthew Forrest making sure that on the brakes there isn't any room for manoeuvre. Fires the car out of the first chicane and then through Virianti Alta. Towards the second chicane they will go. The gap has slowly started to increase between the pair of them. Purple sectors being posted by a raft of drivers, Mariano Lazart being one of them, a purple sector 2 and sector 4. from Coballo last time through the purple sector 3, so everybody's very close together. It's just about how you find that time and how you use the draft, but Gaston Messeroni, a fairly easy job in the background, no real pressure. He can just continue lapping, collect those points and see what he can do throughout the night about mounting a challenge for yet further championship positions. But the closest cars on circuit are the top two. We will look forward now from Nicholas Cacato. You can see that speedo climbing all the way up to 260 kilometers per hour we saw. So whilst they don't have the downforce of a GT3 car, that obviously means in a straight line they can be slightly quicker, but a good run on the exit of Ascari there for Nicholas Cacato. Is he going to be brave enough to go for a move in towards Parabolica? He has a little look towards the inside, covered off by Matthew Forrest, just quite happy sitting behind. He's going to focus on getting a good run out of here. However, it looked like he had to jump on the brakes that extra bit just to get the car slowed down. He might be a little bit too close to really start to get the overspeed from the draft. On the exit of the corner, straight away Matthew Forrest going defensive, hugging the pit wall, making sure that Nicholas Cacato can't find a way through, jumps over to the outside. Matthew Forrest will let the car slowly wash towards the normal racing line, but it's a very, very good run from Nicholas Cacato. He'll have to be much later on the brakes. We know Matthew Forrest is good on the brakes, but can he get it slowed down and go around the outside through the chicane? Not there. He gave it a damn good go, but this time not to be. Matthew Forrest remains in front, but Nicholas Cacato much, much closer than we've ever seen him throughout the entire race so far. Fastest sector 2 last time through from Matthew Forrest, fastest sector 4 from Nicholas Cacato. So these two very evenly matched. Is he going to go for a move towards the second chicane? I don't believe so. Matthew Forrest remains defensive. Nicholas Cacato once again looking to the outside. Great defensive drive so far from Forrest. Bouncing over the curbs he will go. The revs will go right up towards the red line as the car struggles to find the grip, and one side of the axle becomes unloaded and goes airborne. But at the moment, Matthew Forrest still controlling this race, showing that he can defend as soon as he gets in front. Of course, different strategies can be available. You can focus on sitting behind and go for the move later on in the race, give the driver that you've just taken less chance to respond. But Matthew Forrest got to the front and he's now using that advantage just to control the race. Into Ascari, they will both go. Still Nicholas Cacato following Matthew Forrest. Gaston Messeroni not too far adrift. These two will be losing time with all the battling they're doing, but with now under 5 minutes of the race remaining, very quickly running out of time to do anything about it and assist his teammate is Gaston Messeroni. Now look at this, Nicholas Cacato looking to the outside. He is in front. You can see he's jumped in front on the timing screen. Matthew Forrest on the inside. A little bit of a lock-up from one of the drivers. Nicholas Cacato will be able to jump on the throttle slightly earlier, but a little bit of a blink there. Fingers crossed that won't affect the race too much. Matthew Forrest still sat there in the lead of the race now. He has managed to get in front. Nicholas Cacato with that blink might have affected his ability to really get close to Matthew Forrest. Now down towards turn 1 once again. Almost contact between the pair of them. Banging wheel arches together. Matthew Forrest now sat in second place. Who's going to be later on the brakes? Nicholas Cacato just about, but he's got to go the long way around. It becomes the inside for the exit of the chicane. Is there any contact between the pair of them? No, not as of yet, but Matthew Forrest earlier on the throttle gets a good launch off the corner, and he will be on the inside for the long, long right-hander. Nicholas Cacato once again on the outside. Nothing to pick between the pair of them. If Cacato is brave enough and has got the speed, he will be able to remain on the outside. It will become the inside for the second chicane. Later on the brakes, Nicholas Cacato, he gets it slowed down. He'll have to use a lot of the curb, but Matthew Forrest in avoidance locks the brakes, loses a lot of time, and that lead gap now out above 1 second. Good battling between Matthew Forrest and Nicholas Cacato, but eventually Nicholas Cacato came out on top. 3 minutes for Matthew Forrest to respond, but he is getting dangerously close to being out of that draft range. Towards the mid-pack now, Host Schools and Javier Perna still battling away. Looking to the inside is Host Schools, but with all that damage, it will be very difficult to stick with the car in front. He's desperately trying to obviously make amends for the earlier incident. Through Lesmo 1 they will go, and it looks like, obviously with all that damage, the only thing keeping him within touching distance of Javier Perna is that draft assistance. Down the straight they will go. Of course, descending under the bridge of the old banked oval, and then back up towards Ascari. Very quick section of the circuit here. You've got to make sure you brake it bang on the mark that you have found in practice, just to make sure you get the car slowed down. Use all the curb you can get away with, and then fire the car onto the back straight on the exit of Ascari, setting yourself up for Parabolica. Gaston Messeroni, a personal fastest lap of the race, 2 seconds almost 3 seconds quicker than the cars in front. So closing that gap. But these are the closest cars on circuit as it stands. Through Parabolica they will go. Host Schools obviously won't have the same cornering ability as the car in front, but he set the car up very, very nicely. A slightly tighter line from Javier Perna, meaning that the car behind spends less time in his draft, and you can see that gap massively opened up because of that, up to 3.5 tenths now. Towards turn 1, the pair of them will go. Got to be careful on the brakes. Does Host Schools, of course, he's lost that downforce on the front, so lockups will become ever more likely. He's got his teammate some 3 seconds back in the way of Matt Sisseler. Stephen Orrell sat in the pit lane and, of course, in towards retirement after that earlier incident. And through the long right-hander, it looks like this battle is somewhat settled at the moment. Towards the second chicane they will go. Go catch up with our leader. There is Nicholas Cacato. He will get another lap out of this 15-minute sprint race. Through Ascari he will go. Slightly deep, of course, understeer, somewhat of a typical factor in these Porsches. You can tune it out with a little bit of setup work. Down the back straight they will go in towards Parabolica. Still just over 30 seconds of the race remaining, so we will have the completion of this lap and one more. Host Schools still getting closer. You can see the draft assistants really working for him. Within 1/10 of a second now, looking towards the outside on the way in towards Ascari. He's got to be very brave to make it work. He gives it a go. Goes slightly deep, but that will then gift him the inside, and then the outside once again. Cuts back in behind, and there was contact between the pair of them. Javier Perna, after that touch, ends up in the tyre barriers. Such a shame to see. That's once again another car pointing backwards. He's got to be very brave rejoining the circuit there. Grabs reverse and grabs first straight away to get out of the way. But Host Schools tapping the tail end of Javier Perna, meaning that his race is now over. There are our leaders working their way towards the second chicane. Matt Sisseler, obviously Host Schools would have hopefully done everything he can to avoid that, which may have included quite a heavy usage of brakes, but the teammates not wanting to slow each other down. Matt Sisseler obviously will be the quicker in a straight line. He's had the draft assistance, no damage aboard that car. In towards turn 1 and then up in towards 6th place. And now they can work together and just piggyback towards the line. Through sector 2 come our leaders. Matthew Forrest has been getting ever closer. We said he was dangerously close to dropping out of the draft, but he's managed to make it work. You can see Nicholas Cacato violently throwing the car towards the right-hand side of the circuit. Want to get it set up for Ascari, but to try and trick Matthew Forrest, get him out of that draft assistance just for a little bit of time, buying himself every thousandth of a second. This is the final lap of the race now. We've ticked over the 16-minute mark, so the checkered flag will be being readied at the start-finish line. Matthew Forrest there or thereabouts, but he won't be close enough on this occasion. Through Parabolica they will go, and Nicholas Cacato through the final corner for the final time in the sprint race. Towards the line he will come, and for the number 2 driver and Virtua Racing, that's another win to add to his tally. Crosses the line to take the win here at Monza. Matthew Forrest finishes in 2nd place. Gaston Messeroni rounds out your podium, being the 2nd of the 2 Virtua Racing drivers on the podium. Pete Plastow finishes in 4th place. Remco Barlow crossing the line now to finish in 5th. Matt Sisseler heading down the back straight towards Parabolica with Host Schools in tow, his Apex Tech teammate. Through the right-hander they go now. And towards the start-finish line. 10 laps completed here at Monza. Chris Roberts has crossed the line in 11th place. In towards the pit lane comes Host Schools, but Matt Sisseler will cross the line to finish in 6th place. Host Schools crosses the start-finish line in the pit lane to take the checkered flag and finish in 7th place. Stuart Jacklin finishes in 8th. Mariano Lazard finishes in 9th. And Javier Perna, recovering from that incident earlier on, working his way down the back straight towards Parabolica for the final time in this sprint race to round out your top 10 drivers. But what an action-filled race here at Monza. This is only the 15-minute sprint race. We've still got 25 minutes of feature race action on the way. Hopefully a little bit cleaner than what we've seen already this evening, but crossing the line now, Javier Perna to round out your top 10 and finish off the results from race 1 of the evening. We will have a look to see how they crossed the line. So Nicholas Cacato took the win, 2 tenths clear of Matthew Forrest, Gaston Messeroni finishing in 3rd, then followed by Pete Plastow, Remco Barlow, Matt Sisseler, Stuart Jacklin, Mariano Lazard, host Skulj, Javier Perna, Chris Roberts and Stephen Orrell retiring before the end of the race. So 11 finishes here for Heat 1. Heat 2 very shortly on the way. So the 25-minute feature race highlights very shortly getting underway. Everybody working their way on towards the grid. Row 1 of the grid made up of Javier Perna and host Skulj. Then it's Mariano Lazard, followed by Stuart Jacklin. Matt Sisseler and Remco Barlow line up on row 3. Pete Plastow and Gaston Messeroni make up row 4. Followed then by Matt Forrest, Nicholas Cacato, Chris Roberts and Stephen Orrell on the final row and 6th row of the grid. Revs rising now. And Javier Perna, will he get a good start? No, he bogs down very early on. Everybody jumps out towards the middle in avoidance, desperately trying to work their way in towards the lead of the race. So Skulj inherits the lead, followed by Mariano Lazard. Remco Barlow sat there in 3rd place, trying to work his way through. Chris Roberts diving to the inside. Later on the brakes, he's got Matthew Forrest on the outside of him. A little bit of a lock-up further up the road. Avoidance from everybody. Manages to work their way through nice and clean. So it's host Skulj leading, followed by Mariano Lazard. Remco Barlow sat there in 3rd place, Stuart Jacklin and Gaston Messeroni. Then it's the 3 virtual racing compound cars of Pete Plastow, Chris Roberts and Matthew Forrest. Matthew Forrest all over the coattails of the number 63 machine in front. Then it's Nicholas Cacato, Matt Sisseler, Javier Perna. Very, very poor start from pole position, clearly dropping back, whether it be on purpose or by accident. But right now, down in 11th place, Stephen Orrell in the pit lane and maybe in towards retirement. Everybody works their way through the 2nd chicane fairly cleanly. Through Lesmo 1 they will go, and Chris Roberts trying to work his way up past his teammate Pete Plastow under intense pressure. He's trying to work forward himself. Very well held from Chris Roberts. A big flick of oversteer, jumps on the brakes, and with these cars not having any ABS, he managed to get the car straightened up, minimising any lost time. Here is Gaston Messeroni under pressure from Stuart Jacklin, not too far adrift. Pete Plastow all over his tail. Matthew Forrest has Matt Sisseler on his inside. A potential mistake there from Matt Forrest, because both Matt Forrest and Matt Sisseler dropped behind Javier Perna, who was in 11th place just a few moments ago, already up into 9th, trying to chase after Nicholas Cacato. It's still host Skulj leading the way, managing to build up that advantage nice and early in this race. Mariano Lazard sat there in 2nd place. Remco Barlow rounding out the top 3, followed by Gaston Messeroni and Stuart Jacklin, who runs slightly wide. Pete Plastow goes wide. It allows Chris Roberts to work his way up the inside and cuts back over to try and get any aerodynamic benefit from the cars in front and to defend from his teammate, of course, Pete Plastow, well and truly up at the top end of the championship. We will have a look at the points towards the end of this race just to see how the championship will end off. Pete Plastow all the way around the outside, cuts off the nose of Chris Roberts, couldn't get the car slowed down, and over the chicane he will go. He will pick up a slowdown penalty. Nicholas Cacato will work his way past as well. If Pete Plastow has that slowdown, he jumps out towards the outside, and there you go, slowly letting the cars through, bleeding off that time gain. But Chris Roberts now up into 5th place. Pete Plastow, does he have any more time to give up? I think he managed to get rid of it as efficiently as possible. Stuart Jacklin, he doesn't really know where to set his focus. He wants to work his way forward and get past Pete Plastow, but Nicholas Cacato, a formidable force, very sideways in the background there, is the number 93 of Matt Sisseler for Apex Tech Racing, and right the way down towards the tail end of the order he will go. In the car, but I don't think moving, is Stephen Orrell, and he is still in towards retirement. Host Skulj yet further extending that lead margin. You can see him up the road now, 1.4 seconds clear, followed by Remco Barlow, Gaston Messeroni and Chris Roberts. Under the old banking they will go up towards Ascari. Now trying to work his way forward, but very wide goes Mariano Lazard over the gravel trap. He will go, losing out to Chris Roberts, and it's a very poor exit from Chris Roberts. You heard the flick of oversteer, just about got the moment collected up, so all of that time he would have just gained after getting past Mariano Lazard. All gets lost. Mariano works his way through, so too does Nicholas Cacato. So from gaining a place, he's managed to lose one, has Chris Roberts, and that has put him back in the clutches of Matthew Forrest. Side by side through Parabolica they will go. So the two Argentine drivers working almost against each other at this point, desperately trying to find which way to go. Skulj fastest lap of the race, a 1:49.341 from himself. Still side by side in towards the first chicane they will go. Chris Roberts trying to make it 3 wide, goes up the inside of Nicholas Cacato. Contact between Matthew Forrest and Nicholas. Matt, did he get it slowed down? Over the chicane he will go and pick up the monster of all slowdowns, picks up a couple of cones along the way, and then returns to the circuit behind Pete Plastow. So a place lost after trying to gain one. But at the moment, it's all in the mid-pack, fighting away between both Mariano Lizard, who's desperately trying to escape from the 2 cars, 3, almost 4 cars behind now, of Chris Roberts, Nicholas Cacato and Pete Plastow. Matthew Forrest obviously trying to make up for that mistake just a little earlier on. Bouncing over the curbs in the background is Javier Perna, trying to close up to this mid-pack battle. Back to 4 cars for 4th place. Mariano Lizard already under pressure once again, being reapplied by Chris Roberts. Running slightly wide, bouncing over the curbs, but continuing to apply that pressure. He's on the outside, he's got the overspeed now towards Ascari under the bridge, and then back up the hill they will go. Can Chris Roberts make it work all the way around the outside? Can he get it done before there's contact between the pair of them? Mariano Lizard, after that contact, couldn't get the car slowed down. A big lock-up all the way through, sliding over the gravel and the grass. Gets the moment collected up, rejoins the circuit right the way down in 8th place now. But Chris Roberts, after that contact, will have slowed his entry in towards Ascari, allowing the cars behind to close up. Nicholas Cacato will be on the outside for Parabolica. He is in front, cuts off the nose of Chris Roberts. Does he get the move done? He gets it done on the entry. Can he keep in front on the exit? Yes, he can, but then it's a long run down towards the first chicane. Pete Plastow has got to be careful here. Of course, he is leading the championship, potentially won, barring any further stewards' inquiries or any lost points. But at the moment, Pete Plastow sat there in 6th place, being nice and patient, sitting behind his teammate, letting Chris Roberts do all the work, trying to work his way past Nicholas Cacato. Pete goes towards the outside, couldn't quite pry the door open, and remains in 6th place. But it's really hotting up in this midfield battle. So less than a sector later, we now have Chris Roberts once again all over the tail of Nicholas Cacato. Looks to the inside, jumps back into the draft, then looks very late towards the inside. There's contact between the pair of them. Nicholas Cacato in towards Ascari, sends Nicholas Cacato flying towards the gravel. He gets the car collected up, rejoins the circuit. Where is Chris Roberts? He continues on, but it looks like Nicholas Cacato rejoined the circuit in front of Mariano Lizard. Mariano's on his roof, very well avoided from Javier Perna. But Mariano Lizard, after being on his roof, manages to get the car rubber side down. Retakes to the circuit and continues on now right the way down in 9th place, carrying that damage. Nicholas Cacato, after fighting over the top 5, right the way down now in 10th place. Pete Plastow, the big winner out of that one, but he's now under pressure from his teammate Matthew Forrest, crossing the line to tick lap number 5 in the book. In towards the first chicane they will go. Pete Plastow just later on the brakes, tries to work his way around the outside, defend the position. Who's going to be earlier on the power? Matthew Forrest shotguns the car on the exit, desperately squirming for grip is the Porsche 992 Cup car. And he has got that position made, but Pete Plastow tucked underneath his rear wing will probably look towards the inside. No, he won't. Matthew Forrest covers that off nice and early, letting him know that there isn't going to be any room for manoeuvre with the positions as of yet. And through the second chicane they will go. Bouncing over the curbs, it's now Matthew Forrest sat there in 4th place. Pete Plastow in 5th. Chris Roberts recovering after a couple of incidents, now down in 6th. So down towards turn 1 comes this battle. And Matthew Forrest still in front, or he was, bouncing over the curbs, locking his brake, couldn't get the car slowed down. And through the first corner, he will have picked up a big slowdown, even after potential for some damage to the floor. Firing the car over the sausage curbs, that does now mean Pete Plastow up into 4th place. Chris Roberts promoted to 5th. And Matthew Forrest, once again, on the back foot. And now with potential damage on that car, chasing after his VRC teammates. So closing up towards the final few minutes of the race now. Still 7 minutes of the race to go. A lot can change, but in the grand scheme of things, it looks like with the field being as spread out as they are, we won't see any further positional changes apart from this one. Matthew Forrest under pressure all the way down the straight, clearly thrown out of his rhythm, pardon me, and that now means Matt Sisseler up into 6th place. Will Matthew Forrest have anything to defend? He was slower off Ascari, and he's now quite a way back to really think about a lunge in towards Parabolica, but we know how crucial draft assistance is here at Monza, and with only half a second separating these two, does mean Matthew Forrest is still within that striking distance. So now on the exit of turn 2, heading towards the second chicane through the long right-hander, less than 5 minutes of the race remaining. We've got Chris Roberts now in the pit lane, Remco Barlow in second place, under pressure from Gaston Messeroni behind. There's not much between them. Gaston looks towards the inside, has another big look towards the inside. Is he later on the brakes? Can he get the car slowed down, more importantly? Yes and yes. He manages to make it work. Up into second place is Gaston Messeroni. Remco Barlow now down into third place. No pressure from behind. 14 seconds back to Pete Plastow. So the closest cars on circuit are the cars fighting over the final 2 steps on the podium whilst all this is going on. Host Schools 3.2 seconds clear at the front end of affairs in the number 911 Apex Tech racing machine. So on the final lap of the race now, through the second chicane we go. Remco Barlow still doing what he can to work his way past Gaston Messeroni. Pete Plastow down into 5th place now, losing out to Matt Sisler. He's been on a charge all race, up, 5 places, I believe, from where he started. He started in 6th place, so no, only 2 places gained from himself, but Remco Barlow, with a big flick of oversteer, found himself in the wall on the exit of Lesmo 1, gifting some nice security to Gaston Messeroni. Pete Plastow under pressure from Matt Sisler, having just got that place back. Pete Plastow up into 4th place and now doing everything he can to defend. Matt Sisler, pardon me, starting in 5th place, so he's back down to where he started. So he's not gone forward, but more importantly, he hasn't gone backwards as of yet. Chris Roberts, after a trip into the pit lane, finds himself right the way down in 10th place. But towards the line now comes Host Schools, and he will take the win in the final race of the season, the final race of this evening. Round 8 feature race goes to Host Schools in the number 911 Apex Tech car. The Slovenian doing very well. Gaston Messeroni crossing the line in 2nd place. Remco Barlow will round out your podium. Pete Plastow hounded towards Parabolica now, 4th place. Not settled as of yet. Matt Sisler in 5th, not too far behind, towards Parabolica. They will go. Jumping towards the inside is Matt Sisler. Is he later on the brakes? Pete Plastow knows he doesn't have to fight that, but so late on the brakes he couldn't get it slowed down. Matt Sisler, after being 4th place for the Apex, lost out very early on. And that now means Pete Plastow will cross the line to finish in 4th place. Matt Sisler hounding him and crossing the line in 5th. Matthew Forrest, a race of what could have been, will cross the line in 6th. Javier Perna, from pole position, a poor start, fought his way back up towards 7th place from right the way down in 12th. Nicholas Cacato will finish in 8th place ahead of Mariano Lazar, just working his way through Ascari now. Chris Roberts has crossed the line a couple of laps down, albeit to finish, or a lap down to finish in 10th place. Mariano Lazar, your final of the finishes on the lead lap. 14 laps completed, the drivers were just heading on to lap 15. So through Parabolica will come Mariano, and the Argentine driver rounding out your final of the finishes here at the final round of the virtual racing compound Porsche Super Cup, crossing the line now to finish in 9th place. So let's have a look to see how the championship ended here at season 1. And this is how the championship finished. Pete Plastow, ladies and gentlemen, is your virtual racing compound Porsche Super Cup champion on 437 points. And Nicholas Cacato finishing the championship in 2nd place. Hard fought, but didn't quite have enough towards the latter stages of the season. Chris Roberts, by an entire point, beat his virtual racing compound teammate Matthew Forrest to 3rd place, 406 and 405 points respectively. Remco Barlow finished 5th in the championship on 343, followed by Host Schools, Chris Pio, Craig Thompson, Matt Sisler and Ari Sherwood rounding out your top 10 championship standings on 169 points. 6 points back from him was Gaston Messeroni, and then it's Javier Perna, only 3 points back from Gaston in front. Then Timothy van der Broek, followed by Stephen Orrell, Stuart Jacklin, Martin de Jong, Cody Steig and Tyler Campbell in 18th. And then I believe we only have, one more driver to squeeze in. Mariano Lazart finishing the championship in 19th place on 48 points. But a very good championship indeed. It has been great to watch along. It's been great to see everybody in the paddock getting involved. I'm sure we will have another season on the way, potentially with some single-seater action. Make sure you keep an eye out on the Virtual Racing Compound page for that. But from myself, Jack Rowell, it has been an absolute pleasure to cover Season 1 of the Virtual Racing Compound Porsche Super Cup. Thank you very much for joining me this season I hope to see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.